Hello and welcome to Interlagos in Brazil. We are going to follow now the qualifying sessions for the third and final race of the season, the endurance race in Interlagos for Porsche Cup Brasil. It's very, very warm in Brazil right now in Interlagos. There is a heat wave overall in Brazil, but we are going to follow this qualifying, and tomorrow on Saturday we will have the races. You are going to follow this with me, Sergio Lago, and with Carlos Costa. Hello, Carlos.
Hello, Sergio. Very big pleasure to be here with you to broadcast one more round of the Brazilian Porsche Cup Series in this 2023 season. As you said, the last round of the Endurance Championship 500 kilometers race of Interlagos. We see the aerial view of the circuit, Autódromo José Carlos Patti, as we know in Brazil. Good expectation for the race, of course, not just because of the title fights, but also because it's a very special event for Porsche Brazil, with a lot of public in the stands. Of course, special trios of drivers, if we can say so, because we generally have duos of drivers in this endurance championship. And then we have some other guests.
Boa tarde, Luc Monteiro, Thiago Mendonça, todos os fãs de velocidade, de automobilismo. Bom, chegamos à última etapa do ano, decisão do campeonato da Endurance Series, e eu não estou sozinha nesta cobertura. Temos aqui Rodolfo Santos, que veio preencher e trazer mais informações técnicas pra gente, certo, Rodolfo? E aí, tá feliz? Como é que tá sendo essa experiência com a gente aqui?
Prazer estar aqui com você, Renata.
Alongside Renata, Rodolfo Santos, that is also reporting from the pits this round.
Vamos falar desse calor, que isso foi uma coisa que a gente notou conversando com os pilotos aqui, que realmente está mudando todo o comportamento do carro, Rodolfo.
Exatamente, esquentou muito, está um clima abafado, apesar que agora começou a mudar de novo, está com uma ventania, mas os pilotos estavam reclamando bastante de aderência na parte traseira do carro.
É isso.
Isso vai ser um desafio.
E a gente vai trazer tudo que vai estar acontecendo em primeiríssima mão aqui direto do quali para vocês aí, Luc.
Interesting input already from our pit reporters, because the weather conditions are quite tricky for the drivers. And of course, we have to remember that it's quite hot in São Paulo in this last few days. So the heat is an important factor, especially when we think about the tire degradation. And of course, throughout the day, we had practice sessions now, a little bit windy, and that can change the behavior of the car. So let's wait and see what the drivers will be able to do in this management issue, not just when we think about the tire degradation, but also setting up the car for the 500 kilometers race that we have this Saturday. We have to remember that it is a longer race compared to the season opener that we had in this very circuit, Interlagos, 300 kilometers race. That was the same length that we had in the Termas de Rio Hondo round, the intermediate round of this season. Sergio.
Yes, exactly, Carlos. In the championship race, Marcel Miller, after 2 rounds, and Enzo Elias that races with him, they lead the championship with 142 points. They're followed by Werner Neugebauer and Ricardo Zonta with the Porsche number 8. They are 16 points behind the leaders. And then right behind them, Carlos, the Barrichello brothers, both sons of Rubens Barrichello. Fefo and Dudu Barrichello have 117 points. So they're pretty much very good chances of getting the championship. And then we have Alceu Feldman and Guilherme Salas behind them. I'll see the images from Interlagos. It's close to the end of the day in São Paulo. You can see this beautiful view, a sunny day, and thanks God, Carlos, we are not having any storm, or at least it doesn't look like we are going to have any storm in this afternoon, at least for the time being.
Yeah, and that's good, because the last few days have been tricky in that matter as well here in São Paulo. I live in São Paulo, and we are suffering with the heat, and from time to time heavy rains, as you said. So far so good. The forecast doesn't indicate rain throughout this quali session, so they have to hit the track straight away and try to be fast as much as they can, in order also to have the qualifying sessions right after one another, so that we don't have the risk of raining. And now we have the green flag, apparently.
Exactly. We're going to start the practice we'll have 50 minutes of practice, and then for this, the Carrera Cup cars, and then we'll have 40 minutes of a qualifying session for the challenge. They are going to both race together in this race, as it is in the endurance races, and there we see the first cars, Carlos.
Yeah, that's it. So, as you said, good expectation for the squala sessions. We are going to talk a bit about the championship situations in both of the championships and its classes as well. As we see car number 38 already hitting the track. I believe that's Eric Santos. But anyway, a lot of drivers. We have, if I'm not wrong, 84 drivers. You mentioned the Barrichello brothers, Sergio. They had the crash in a practice session earlier today. So, repairs are being done in their car. So let's see if everything is okay with Fernando and Eduardo Barrichello. Dudu, as he's known, is racing full-time in the Stock Car Pro Series alongside his father, Rubens, and Fernando Barrichello is a Formula 4 driver, not just in Brazil, but also Spain. So interesting duo of drivers, both of them very young, and of course the fact that they are kids of Rubens gives a special side to them. But anyway, let's wait and see if they are able to get the car okay to hit the track and qualify for this 500 kilometers race session.
There you see the cars. The race tomorrow, cars, will be 500 kilometers. And there we have the Porsche for Ramon Alcaraz and Márcio Mauro.
Yeah, Ramon Alcaraz and Márcio Mauro, as you said, we previously saw car number 38 of Eric Santos and João Gonçalves, and they have a special guest this round, Sergio. No more, no less than Christian Fittipaldi will be racing alongside Eric and João Gonçalves in the car number 38. So that's one of the big stars that will be racing this weekend in Porsche Brazil. Christian Fittipaldi, a former F1 driver, but of course with a lot of experience in the American Motorsport Championships. So it will be very special.
Você também falando que o Eric vai para a pista, o João também. Você não vai participar do quali. E aí eu quero saber como que é ficar do lado de fora aqui, com
Renata,
toda a sua experiência, só olhando os pilotos na pista durante esse quali, Christian.
Bom, não é a primeira vez, já aconteceu várias vezes comigo, às vezes você classifica, às vezes você não classifica. É a própria natureza de uma competição de corrida longa, então eu acho que eu nem poderia participar pelo regulamento, como eu sou piloto convidado, enfim, eu nem entrei em detalhes. Mas...
Thiago Mendonça depois esclarece tudo pra gente.
Exatamente, mas a gente tentou montar de um jeito que era... Nossa, que barulho! Que era a melhor combinação possível pra gente. Então a melhor combinação possível pra gente foi fazer o João classificar logo no começo e daí tentar dar o máximo possível de voltas pro Eric no final da metade para frente da classificação.
Como é que foram os treinos para você aqui? Como foram os treinos?
Não, foi tudo bem. Ontem foi tranquilo. Hoje foi um pouco mais conturbado. A gente teve que parar no meio do treino, trocar de carro. Enfim, não foi tão suave que nem ontem, mas melhor ter acontecido isso no treino do que acontecer na hora da corrida. Então, tá tudo em ordem para a corrida amanhã. E vamos ver o que vai dar para fazer. Vai estar quentinho dentro do carro. Vai estar meio sauna, né?
Meio, só meio. Obrigada.
Imagina.
Luque.
Yeah, we mentioned Christian Fittipaldi. We heard him being interviewed by Renata Diniz. Interesting to see Christian back to the competitive racing scene in Brazil. It has been a while already, and of course a tough weekend for him given the heat that we mentioned in the beginning of the broadcast. He talked about the quali strategy because he's racing in a trio, so as he's the guest driver, the newer guest driver, he won't be qualifying. And he talked about the strategy for car number 38. So João Gonçalves will try a fast lap straight ahead. And of course, then he will pass the car to Eric Santos so that Eric, that is a younger driver, will try to adapt himself to the car and the track in order to have track time and then have a good fast lap time attempt. We have to remember the regulations for this qualifying sessions of Porsche Endurance Series. The grid is set by the average time of the drivers of the duos or trios. When we have a trio, the newer guest driver won't be qualifying. So that's how it works. And Christian also talked about the practice sessions that we had throughout today and yesterday as well. A bit eventful. They had to change the car in one of the sessions, but as Christian said, it's better to happen in the practice sessions than in the quali or the race. So let's wait and see what Christian, João Gonçalves, and Ericsson will be able to do in the car number 38, as we see one more driver hitting the track right now. And now a nice view of car number 139, one of the most interesting performance throughout the season, because we're talking about Célio Brasil and Danilo Girani alongside Antonella Bassani. She is the newer guest driver, but Brasil has been performing very well in the Porsche Sprint Challenge Sprint Championship of the short-term races. And now they are joined by Antonella Bassani, that is the Sprint champion this year overall. So very nice to see Antonella racing in the Endurance Championship as well, and Danilo Girani, a very experienced driver and also a driver coach in Brazil. So a strong trio, Célio Brasil in a good seat, Antonella Bassani, the sprint champion of Porsche Challenge, and of course Danilo Girani. So let's wait and see what they are able to do as a trio, as we see one more time the car number 57.
Exactly, Carlos. This is a very interesting point, this qualifying session, Carlos, that it changed starting last race in Termas de Rio Hondo, that the two drivers of each car will do their best time, and then will combine the best qualifying times. But during the same session, before we had this in different sessions, this will be a 50-minute session, as I said. Then the challenge will be just a 40-minute challenge session, because Carlos, in the Carrera Cup, we have 25 Porsches competing, and in the Sprint Challenge, we have only 10. So it explains why we have more time for the Carrera Cup. And of course, the teams that have 3 drivers, only 2 drivers will do the qualifying time. So one of the drivers won't participate in this qualifying time.
Yeah, the trios, the newer driver, let's put it that way, won't be qualifying the car. It is the case of Christian Fittipaldi alongside João Gonçalves and Eric Santos, as explained, and that's the case as well of Eduardo Taurisano in the car number 44. He's joining Giuliano Bertuccelli and Pietro Himbano, but Bertuccelli and Himbano will be the guys that will hit the track in order to have this average of the car number 44, and that works the same way for the Carrera Cup Championship, as Sergio explained. And of course, given the fact that we have a lot more cars in Carrera Cup, the length of the qualifying session that we'll have following this one is bigger, and that's a standard already, Sergio. You have been covering Porsche for a while alongside me, and in the Endurance Championship, we always have a bigger grid in the Carrera Cup Championship. So that's a little bit different when we compare to the Sprint Championship, in which Porsche Carrera and Porsche Sprint Challenge are quite balanced there. And let's wait and see the maths of these average times now, because we have 10 minutes already of qualifying session, the last 5, and the cars that didn't change the drivers, they have to do it straight away.
Exactly. There we see the Porsche number 139. Porsche 139 is for Célio Brasil, Danilo Girani, and one of the drivers of that Porsche, Carlos, is Antonella Bassani. That was the big and nicest surprise of this year's championship. She ended up at the last race, in the last round of the Sprint Championship. She ended up being the champion, even though it was her first year. She's a very young driver. She's one of the new female talents we have right now in Brazil. She did a beautiful job, and she ended up stealing, let's put it this way, the championship in the last round, and she'll be competing in that car, number 139.
Yeah, that's right. And it was quite a drama in the season finale of the Sprint Championship that we had a couple of weeks ago, because she ended up champion due to a disqualification for Marcelo Tomazoni, her title rival. But anyway, we have to praise her job. As you said, first season for her in Porsche Brazil, if I'm not wrong, only 17 years old. So that's very nice to see that apart from having a good representation with female drivers, we have younger ones arriving in this series as well. And just to talk a bit about the championship situation and the challenge dispute that we are seeing, Tadaki Leite and Fabio Carboni are leading, Sergio, but not that far away from Cédio Brasil and Danilo Girani, even though the points gap is quite good. But if we consider the discarded results, then Tadaki Leite and Fabio Carboni have 116 points against 99 for Brasil and Girani. And Juliano Bertuccelli and Pietro Himbano have a pretty decent situation as well, with 93 points, so only 6 points behind Cédio Brasil, and then Tadaki Leite and Fabio Carboni has 116. So let's wait and see the title fight in this championship.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, this would be the Carrera Cup, but they inverted the two qualifying sessions. And anyway, we have the challenge. And one thing that's very interesting, Carlos, is that tomorrow in the race on Saturday, we'll have over 30 Porsches competing in Interlagos, which makes of a very, very nice show. So it's something that's really, really cool. And will be, like I said, 10 cars in the Sprint Challenge and 25 cars in the Carrera Cup Championship. Of course, they are split in the sports class and in the rookie class. Right now, Porsche number 44 is leading with Pietro Himbano ahead of the car. He races with Taurissano and Bertuccelli, Eduardo Taurissano and Giuliano Bertuccelli. And Eduardo Taurissano, he was one of the nicest surprises this year as well, Carlos.
Yeah, definitely. Eduardo Taurissano actually started the year in the Porsche Sprint Trophy, the school category of Porsche Brazil that uses the older spec of cars that were retired actually last year, but they were intelligent enough to create a school category, and Eduardo Taurissano started in this Porsche Sprint Trophy Championship, but he was way ahead of the pack, so that he was promoted to Porsche Sprint Challenge and won races. I believe that he didn't fight for the title because he didn't participate in the first two rounds, if I'm not wrong. So definitely a nice surprise in this series. A gentleman driver, but a very fast one, and maybe will be promoted to Porsche Carrera Cup in 2024. Anyway, as we explained, he won't be qualifying today, but that's definitely an interesting add to this grade, and of course that helps Giuliano Bertuccelli, actually his Sprint Trophy rival back in the beginning of the year, and Pietro Himbano, also a stock light driver.
There you see again the Porsche number 139. We see that's without any sponsors, and that's because the car, original car, had some issues during the training, and then it has these problems there. And now Porsche number 2 of Luis Souza and Bruno Bonifacio, which right now is last among the 10 cars, but they still have to get their best time yet. So let's wait and see if they stay in 10th or if they will improve. Let's see when they cross the line, if they improve somewhat. But no, they stay the same there. So let's see if they're going to start a fast lap right now, Carlos.
Yeah, and interesting to mention Luis Souza and Bruno Bonifacio because they led the first practice session of the weekend with an average time of 1 minute 38 seconds 1:76, and we see that this reference is already beaten by Giuliano Bertuccelli and Pietro Himbano. As you said, Himbano inside the car, so it's interesting to compare the lap times. And one curious information I would say, Sergio, is the fact that times from the practice session number 1 are actually faster than the lap times from the second practice session that we had just before the quali session. So maybe something with track temperature and so on.
Exactly. Remembering that it's very, very hot in São Paulo during these days in Interlagos, which makes for a very interesting one. Another thing I would like to point, Carlos, is that this last weekend of the season, right? Because we had the sprint championship with 6 rounds and 2 races in each round, and the endurance championship with 2 races of 300 kilometers, and now this race on Saturday that we'll have of 500 kilometers. And then, you know, this is the last race, Porsche Cup Brasil race of the year, and there is always a show with vintage Porsches. Lots of Porsche owners go to this race because, of course, São Paulo, as you who are watching probably know, but if you don't know, it's the main city in Brazil. It's by far the most developed city in Brazil. So it has lots of activities related to the Porsche family.
Yeah, definitely. Now we see the comparison of the lap times throughout the different sectors. Interesting, because we have a big gap between car number 44 and 38, but then car number 14 isn't that far, even though we have a little bit more than 3/10 between them, as we see there Eduardo Barrichello and Rubens checking the Barrichello kids car. Let's see if they were able to repair. As I explained in the beginning of the broadcast, they had a crash earlier today in a practice session and they needed to repair the car. So it would be, of course, a big shame if they weren't able to qualify today.
This is the car for Christian Moore. Christian Moore is driving this Porsche 382. It's another car that will have 3 drivers this weekend. He's going to race with Gerson Campos and Mario Mariotti. So that will be a very interesting car for us to pay attention. Miguel Mariotti, actually. Gerson Campos and Miguel Mariotti. So these are the 3 drivers of that Porsche. And now in the 45, Carlos, we have right now Roque. We have driving Mateus Roque is driving this car. Is the Porsche number 45.
Yeah, Mateus Roque, also a Porsche Sprint Trophy driver. Interesting to see him in the Endurance Championship alongside Paulo Totaro, one of the most liked characters of this series for quite a while already. An older driver that had unfortunate crash in the preseason testing in the beginning of last year, if I'm not wrong, and now back to his racing duties. And they are joined by Felipe.
Vocês viram, tava o Rubinho com o Fefo, o Dudu, olhando a telemetria e por um motivo especial, né, Rubinho? Queria que você comentasse o que vocês estavam olhando ali.
A gente estava olhando a reconstrução desse carro, né? Muita gente me perguntou por que eu postei só as crianças abraçadinhas, até me dá aquela...
O choro, né?
Oxi.
Mas é de alívio.
É, de alívio, de agradecimento. Ontem o Fefo teve uma infelicidade e ele acabou batendo forte e eu estava saindo do box e assim foi uma coisa. Eu desci do carro rápido, eu acho que eu cheguei em 20 segundos até ele.
Antes que o resgate até.
E aí eu vi, ele estava agitado, mas ele estava falando de alguma coisa da perna e tal. E aí a minha preocupação é que, infelizmente, ontem os meninos não tinham bandeiras, e então tinha muita gente vindo rápido. Eu fui pro meio da pista porque ali poderia ser muito pior. Eu falei, não sai do carro, e ele ficou dentro do carro. E cara, foi uma pancada muito, muito forte. E assim, a gente tem muita gratidão, não só a Deus por deixar os meninos salvos, e pelo Denner e por todo o grupo que vararam a noite. Então, a você, meu amigo que trabalhou nesse carro, que colocou seu dedinho, muito obrigado, muito obrigado. Eu cheguei a vir aqui à noite, até meia-noite eu fiquei acompanhando, mas 6 horas da manhã eu voltei, estavam os mesmos meninos trabalhando. E assim, cara, esses aqui gostam muito de fazer isso, né? E o Dudu, cara, foi lá, pegou o irmão no colo, saímos do ambulatório, todos os 3 abraçados. Para mim, esse é o meu melhor troféu.
É um choro de alívio. E ele tá aqui, inteiríssimo, bem pra caramba, né, Fefo? Mas foi mais assusto.
Acho que é uma coisa que faz parte do nosso esporte, né? Eu sofri um acidente ontem, foi uma infelicidade, mas eu acho que instantaneamente ali eu tive muita gratidão quando eu percebi que os danos pra mim ali eram mínimos. Realmente é um acidente que foi muito forte, que podia ter acontecido alguma coisa muito grande, então realmente foi tentar ver o que a gente conseguia melhorar. Minha perna um pouco machucada ainda, mas fiz muito tratamento, mas eu acho que é isso, eu acho que agradecer o pessoal. Eu fui lá dar um abraço em todo mundo da Porsche, que realmente trabalhou a noite inteira e o dia inteiro hoje para botar esse carro na pista. O carro tá inteiro, o carro tá 0 bala e realmente foi um trabalho impecável. A gente estava ali junto, assistindo, realmente não tenho palavras para agradecer o trabalho todo de todos ali dentro, tentando botar esse carro de volta na pista, sabe? Então realmente foi emocionante. Para mim, eu vou dar tudo que eu tenho. A gente não conseguiu treinar, mas acho que faz parte. E um pouco de dor daqui, um pouco de dor de lá faz parte. E agora é dar tudo e agradecer ao Papai do Céu pela oportunidade de poder estar bem.
Papai do Céu, o carro que é muito seguro e agora fica provado mais ainda, e a equipe que fez esse trabalho, né?
Isso aí, eu acho que tem que dar um abraço, tem que agradecer de verdade pelo trabalho que eles fizeram, de estar com o carro aqui atrás de mim, 0 bala, novo e pronto para ir direto pro quali.
Cara, não dá nem pra acreditar, o carro tá impecável. Dudu, foi susto pra você também, né?
Bom, pra mim foi muito difícil, na verdade, porque eu tava de capacete já. Eu tava pronto pra andar, saiu a bandeira vermelha. Eu sei que bandeira vermelha não é legal pra ninguém, mas eu falei, nossa, é bom porque a gente pode trocar de piloto com um pouco mais de calma. E os pilotos começaram a sair do carro e vieram correndo até mim. Eu tava aqui, exatamente aqui. E eles falaram pra mim, cara, tá os 2 carros da Marte lá e um deu PT. Acabou, o carro tá no meio. Cara, que isso? Eu saí correndo, fui pro fundo do box, ir atrás da ambulância, me falaram que ele ia estar lá no ambulatório. Então eu tirei o capacete, fui correndo lá, encontrei ele. Mas graças a Deus tá tudo certo, assim, certo na medida do possível. Coitado, ele tá todo dolorido, mas ele é muito guerreiro. Eu sei que a gente vai tratar das dores dele quando acabar a corrida. E é isso, eu tive a oportunidade, enquanto ele andava, de dar um abraço em todo mundo que montou o carro de volta. Eles viraram a noite, meninos e meninas da Porsche. A gente deve essa para vocês, tomara que a gente possa trazer um resultado positivo, porque realmente eles fizeram um trabalho fenomenal aí. A gente conseguiu dar uma volta a cada antes da classificação, antes do treino, não tinha sentado no carro ainda, então isso é melhor do que muita coisa. Essa única volta que eu tive me ajudou demais. Eu acho que vai me ajudar a progredir na classificação. Tomara que amanhã a gente possa ter um resultado bom aí pela nossa família.
Valeu, Dudu, Fefo, Rubinho, por falar comigo. O carro tá aqui, ó, inteiraço, vocês podem ver com os próprios olhos. E é isso, muita gratidão e um início de final de semana já de superação. Eles indo pra pista agora no quali, mais superação ainda. E a gente vai acompanhar tudo aqui. Obrigada, meninos. Com você aí, Luc.
Yeah, we heard there from Rubens, Fernando, Fefo, and Eduardo. Dudu. Rubens with an emotional tone there, talking about how strong the crash was. It was actually yesterday, so overnight the job of repairing the car was done by the Porsche crew. Rubens, of course, highlighted that, as did Fefo and Dudu as well. Rubens actually talked a bit about how he went directly to the crash scene and got there even prior to the rescue team in order to check the health of his kid, and of course happily it was okay, even though Fefo said that he has some pains here and there, a bit of an injured leg, even though he's fit enough to race. And of course the major concern for them was Fefo's state, but also the fact that they didn't have track time with this car because of the crash. And of course Eduardo talked a bit about that as well. They both had only 1 lap with this car in order to check if everything is okay prior to the qualifying session. And we saw previously the scene of the father and the older kid, Rubens and Dudu, checking the car, but they were actually checking data from the car because the repairment is okay. So let's wait and see what they are able to do. And of course we have to praise the safety of these Porsche cars, the most produced race cars in the world, and once more proven that they are safe. And of course, we have to remember it was quite a strong crash, even though we didn't have images of that. But Rubens was very concerned, Eduardo as well, and Fefo a little bit injured, but fit enough to race this weekend.
Yes, it's a very interesting story, Carlos. I mean, this family bond that we can see between the Barrichellos, Ruben, in a way, I would say, have been blessed with two drivers in his sons being two drivers, and for sure he enjoys a lot racing with his sons, but at the same time, it brings this situation. He's the father. We all know that race driving is always a dangerous sport. You can have accidents. That's part of the game. And it's interesting that he stopped the car immediately. And I really liked this part that he stopped the car immediately to go see how his son was. And he was worried because there was no one at that time waving the yellow flag, and he went to the track to wave for the other drivers to slow their speed so there would be no further problem. So that's a story to keep, Carlos. I would say one of the stories of race car driving.
Yeah, definitely. And interesting to see that even though he was quite emotional because of the big crash, of course, concerned about his kid and so on, he was wise enough to think about the waves, as you explained, because it was a dangerous part of the track as well, in the middle of the Interlagos layout, in which, of course, visibility isn't that good when we compare to the main straight or even the reverse straight. Whoa, someone went wide there.
Yes, that was number 66, no? Sadak Leite is driving.
Yeah, Sadak Leite.
Carboni, actually, Fabio Carboni is driving. It shows Sadak there, but Fabio Carboni is the one driving. He's the second driver there of the car.
It's interesting to see the classes in this challenge endurance championship, because we have only main challenge class car, that is car number 382. Actually, Marcelo Tomazzoni was partnering with Gerson Campos, but Tomazzoni is not racing this weekend. And now we have Christian Mor and Miguel Mariotti, and only two cars in the sport class, apart from the rest of the pack that are from the rookie class. But only one car in the main one and two in the sport class. I consider only one class, even though, of course, for the rookies, we have to think specially about them. But he lost the front end of the car, apparently, there in this right-hander, and went wide, but eventually was able to prevent the crash. Fabio Carboni, also a very experienced driver, and one of the driver coaches that we have in this series that is now joining Sadak Leite.
Yeah, and that was not that good for them, Carlos, because you see the average time there on the bottom of your screen, and on the top you have the best time so far. So Sadak Leite had the best time when he went to the track, but right now we are looking for the average of the two drivers. So for sure, Fabio Carboni will have to do a nice lap. He still has time to do that, but you have to do a nice lap to see what will be his average time. Right now, the Porsche number 139 is ahead of the pack. Right now, it has a provisional pole position, the car from Célio Brasil, Danilo Dirani, and Antonella Bassani.
Yeah, that's it. And we have 10 minutes to go, I believe. So, as you said,
yeah.
A lot of time to go, but of course that compromises the whole effort, as we see there Carboni back to the garage and talking to Sadak Leite. We saw a bit of celebration, but I believe that they were celebrating the fact that they didn't crash, as we saw also a chat between Ricardo Zonta, the former Formula 1 driver and FIA World GT World Champion, and Guilherme Salas, that is joining Alceu Feldman. Zonta racing alongside Werner Neubauer in the Carrera Carrera Endurance Championship in this 2023 season. But anyway, a lot of big names, and now we are getting to the decisive part of the qualifying session.
Porsche number 45, we see it there. It has, in the individual times, it has the second best time. But right now, the important thing is the average time. We've seen, Carlos, the average time, sometimes it makes a huge difference because of the nature of this competition, endurance competition, even more in the challenge or in the Carrera Cup, but in the sport class and in the trophy class as well, the rookie class, you see that what happens is sometimes we have a huge difference or reasonable difference between the two drivers or three drivers competing. So it makes a difference. Sometimes a car who it seems to be ahead when the second driver gets it, it falls behind, and vice versa, of course. So that's the importance that both drivers do well. Sometimes neither of them was the best, but together they got the best combined time.
Yeah, the dynamic is a bit different between qualifying and race, as you said, especially in an endurance race such as is the case. And of course, with the average times, you see that the difference of driving skills between the competitors, it isn't that apparent because we are looking to the average times, not necessarily the lap effort, even though when we check, for example, the latest Fabio Carboni mark there, it is quite ahead of the rest of the averages. But in the long run, especially in a 500 kilometers race, it is very apparent. I remember seeing that, especially in Nelson Piquet Jr. and Roman Gimkevich's case. Piquet had a very good race last time out in terms of Rio Hondo, and Gimkevich actually was out of position because Piquet gained a lot of ground, and then eventually Roman was in between the pro drivers because the strategy, the stint strategy was a bit reversed there, and then of course he lost a lot of time, sadly for the duo, but it happens. That's part of endurance racing, and that's not just in Porsche Brazil, but a lot of racing series worldwide.
Yeah, and that's very interesting to see. You know, I like one of the drivers I like watching during these races is exactly Nelson Piquet Jr. because he goes really, really fast. You know, I wonder if he were racing with another pro driver, what they would do together. But anyway, he's connected to Roman Zinkevich, like you said. You know, he coaches and helps Roman Zinkevich. It's part of his job, let's put it this way, right? Because many times these professional drivers that drive with the other, that's, let's say it's a pro-am driver, they coach these drivers during the season for example, the sprint championship, and then that's what happens. So right now, Carlos, Porsche number 2 gets ahead in the combined time, Luis Souza and Bruno Bonifacio. So they are from the rookie class, so they have a very good time so far. Even though we have a racing one challenge, one car in the challenge right now, we see it's number 9 there, is the number 32 with Christian Moore, Gelson Campos and Miguel Mariotti, and you have only 2 cars in the sports class.
Que eles estão comentando aqui no box, que a média ainda não foi atualizada.
Yeah, Renata reporting that the average times haven't been updated yet, so let's wait and see what changes, if that's the case. Even though we have to remember that Luis Souza and Bruno Bonifacio, as I said earlier today, they led the first practice session, and the second one was led by the trio composed by Totaro, Paulo Totaro, Matheus Rocchi, and Felipe Batista. But anyway, as Renata reported, we still have to wait for the update of the average times, Sergio.
Exactly, there they are. Number 2, the driver is Bruno Bonifacio right now, that's driving this car. He's trying to improve his time. Right now, they are about 1/10 of a second ahead of the car which is in second, with the one from Célio Brazil, Danilo Dirani and Antonella Bassani. This car is doing a great job as well. I would say is one of the favorites, Carlos, because Danilo Dirani is a very fast driver, and Antonella Bassani has proven herself also to be a very fast driver. So And of course, there is Célio Brasil, which is a regular of the Challenge Championship, and they probably will do a nice trio tomorrow in the race in Interlagos.
Oh yeah, definitely. With a sprint champion, a guy that is leading his class, Célio Brasil, I believe is the rookie leader of the sprint championship, and Danilo Girani, they are in a strong position. Let's see, of course, if they confirm this average time pole position. But anyway, in such a long run race, they have good chances independently of the grid position. But anyway, so far so good, and quite short gap between the two fastest cars in this moment, 139 and number 2. Let's see if the rest of the pack is able to catch up as well, even though the clock is ticking.
One last hope for these drivers, we actually don't have updated the average time for 3 cars up to the moment. Actually, it's 10 cars there. No, we have only 8 there, but we have the average time for only 5 cars. So I'm sure, Carlos, this average time will be updated. You know, now we have a 6 car, and that car is not doing that good, the 382, considering these are the only that are in the challenge category. Let's put the pure challenge category. They are neither sport or rookie, and right now they are in 6. I believe they will improve their time, Carlos, because you see they are far behind their time. You see it's 5 minutes, so it makes no sense at all. Most surely they will improve their time. And in the 14 now we have driver Luis Landi.
Yeah, but definitely we can expect better lap times from car number 382. We have to remember that there is a driver lineup change there. As I said, they had Marcelo Tomazoni alongside Gerson Campos, now Christian Moore and Miguel Mariotti joining Campos. But anyway, Moore is a very competitive driver as well, and that's the case also for Miguel Mariotti. They are all protagonists in the Porsche Sprint Challenge Championship, and Gerson Campos apparently has adapted quite good to this car, considering the previous appearances that we saw from him. So maybe they didn't get the lap together there, even though the clock is ticking, so they have to do that straight away.
Again, we see 45, the car number 45. Felipe Batista is driving it right now, and it's in 6 overall. Luis Landi got ahead of the pack, Carlos, with Bruno Xavier. Now Porsche number 139 is in 2nd, and Luis Souza and Bruno Bonifacio are in 3rd with Porsche number 2. Great time by combined time. Oh, now we have number 45. Wow, great lap by number 45. And now they are ahead. Felipe Batista. Felipe Batista is a very good driver, Carlos, and he put this team ahead of the pack at this moment.
Yeah, since it is a new trio, they can actually choose which one of the drivers will be qualifying. 2 of them, in this case, it is a car that is driven by 3 drivers, and Felipe Batista is definitely one of the fastest on the grid in this moment, in this Challenge Championship, ahead of the Endurance 500 kilometers of Porsche. Former Stock Light champion, as I said, he's now racing full-time in the Stock Car Pro Series, one of the most competitive categories in Latin America, so we can expect good things from him. As I said, an interesting trio because we have such a young driver as Felipe Batista and an older one as Paulo Totaro, but now apparently it changed.
Let's see if number 45 can improve, Felipe Batista, because now he's in 2nd. Israel Salman is in 1st with the 133. Actually, the car is being driven by Rafael Martins, who races with Israel Salman. Israel Salman was the first to get in car number 133. And there we have again the 382. For me, I'm expecting more. Let's see if right now with Gerson Campos they can improve their time.
Yeah, but interesting to see Rafa Martins there ahead of the pack. PK Sports team driver has also subbed Nelson Piquet Jr. in a round of the Stock Car Pro Series this year because Piquet had a racing duty in Europe, I believe, a Barcelona round of the European Le Mans Series, and Rafa Martins was very fast back in that weekend. So nice to see him. And Isaiah Salman is also a nice name from the Porsche Sprint Challenge Championship throughout the year. Now racing this endurance event, and of course a strong lineup of drivers as well.
It's a beautiful image of Interlagos. We just had the Formula One Grand Prix there in São Paulo in this same circuit, and that was an interesting Grand Prix because we had a big storm on Friday, right? I believe that scared everybody there. That was also the last sprint race of the championship, and the race was, it was a very interesting race in Interlagos this year with a huge public. The Brazilians, they really pack the Interlagos for the Formula One race every year.
Yeah, I was there, a record public attendance, by the way, and of course we have to remember that we had the Porsche Sprint Championship season finale alongside the Formula One Grand Prix and also the Brazilian Formula 4 event, but that's where Antonella Bassani was crowned champion. So in the eyes of the Formula One paddock, it was very nice to see. And just talking a bit about the F1 race, it was very crazy, as you said, with the storm Friday. Then okay Saturday, but Sunday, the Grand Prix itself, we had a very nice fight between Fernando Alonso and Sergio Perez for the final podium position. But it was a very nice weekend also for Porsche Brazil with the season finale. Carrera Cup also deciding their champions. We can talk a little bit about that throughout the broadcast, but it was especially good for Antonella and in a quite dramatic way after the disqualification of Marcelo Tomazoni. But anyway, always nice to see that Porsche Brazil is a support event for the Formula One Grand Prix in Interlagos since 2005, if I'm not wrong. Anyway, a shared history between the two series, the most popular and important one in the whole world, and the one with the most produced race cars. That is a very good success, a very big success, by the way, in Brazil.
You see details of all the Porsches that competed in the Challenge Series for the qualifying session. There we are. Right now we are only having highlights, even though the time it's already 44 minutes, even though we are seeing recuperated images of this qualifying session. Because in my original schedule, Carlos, I had it 40 minutes for
yes.
I don't know, at least the clock's still ticking in our live timing. It's already 44 minutes. It's normal. Sometimes we have little changes during the schedule. They have to adapt to situations, of course, that happen during the day, mainly in this case that we're close to the end of the day, even though these cars, oh, look, penalization for number 45. Wow. They raced more than 15 laps. Carlos, you can't race more than 15 laps. That's a huge mistake. I would say, that to race one more lap than you are allowed to. That's the team responsible. They have to tell the driver. Of course, the drivers, they don't know how many laps they are driving. They're not counting. They're concentrated on other issues than the number of laps. Oh, I just did the third, the fourth lap. So it's a problem for the team.
Foi uma evolução boa no final de semana. A pista tá meio difícil, mas eu gostei no final do desempenho, da forma que tocou, da forma que o carro se comportou. Amanhã a gente larga bem posicionado aí para a disputa do título. Aí.
É isso, o título tá aí, tá na liderança.
Então, eu quero muito esse título. Eu acho que esse vai dar.
É isso. Carbone tá aqui para ajudar a fazer isso acontecer, né, Carbone?
Na verdade é a média. Então, como ele tá andando super bem também, acho que na média nós estamos bem e estamos largando uma posição legal, acho que vai dar para brigar.
É isso. Valeu. Vocês aí, meninos.
Yeah, we heard from the duo of drivers of the car number 66, Sadaki Leite and Fabio Carboni. Sadaki Leite highlighting how challenging the track conditions are because of the heat and how it has an impact in the tire management. But anyway, he has an interesting situation in the championship standings to fight for this title. Now they're celebrating their combined lap time, and he missed his title shot in the Porsche Sprint Championship. So now in the Endurance Championship, he wants a lot to get this title, and being paired by Fabio Carboni, as we explained, one of the most experienced drivers in this Porsche Challenge Endurance Grid, driver coach as well, and a very fast one. But Fabio highlighted Sadaki's pace so far, because Sadaki is clocking fast lap times as well, and one after another, so that helps in the average lap time, and that's why they got a good grid position there.
So now we are actually seeing, Carlos, the Carrera Cup drivers' cars hitting the track. So actually, I think even though the time still counts here, 47 minutes in our live timing, it's the overall time that we had so far since the beginning, but the session actually end up with the 40 laps, with the 40 minutes, pardon me, in the challenge, and now we have a 50-minute session with the Carrera Cup drivers. Of course, there are a lot more Carrera Cup cars than the Sprint Challenge cars. We have, as I said before, 25 Carrera Cup cars, Porsches. We have 6 in the main Carrera Cup category, 12 in the sport class, and 7 in the rookie class.
Yeah, it's a little bit more balanced between the classes in the Challenge Championship. I consider that we have pretty much only one championship, because in the main class, the overall one, we have only one car, and then just 2 in the sport class, and then the whole rest of the pack composed by rookie drivers. So it's all together now, and and now with the Carrera Cup, then we have the classes divided in a more balanced way. A lot of cars, as you explained, the most accomplished drivers of Porsche Brazil in this championship, even though we had such a nice guest in the figure of Christian Fittipaldi in the quali session that we had before. But Christian didn't hit the track, as we explained. But anyway, a lot of big names apart from the front runners in the championship standings. We have also Rubens Barrichello, joined by Franco Giaffoni, Nelson Piquet Jr., as we mentioned, joining Roman Ginkiewicz. This time we have Gabriel Casagrande, also alongside Eduardo Menossi and Pedro Boesel. Gabriel Casagrande, the 2021 Stock Car Pro Series champion. So a lot of accomplished drivers, such as Caio Collet, a former FIA Formula 3 driver, that is joining Edu Guedes and Renan Pizzi in the car number 9. So let's wait and see what they are able to do. And apart from that, I would highlight Vitor Meira as well, Sergio, former IndyCar driver, joining Leonardo Sanchez and Attila Abreu in the car number 15. So very nice to see Vitor back in the Brazilian racing scene, as this Bia Figueiredo as well, Gianluca Petekov, and other drivers that are known worldwide.
Now we see number 1, Alceu Feldman and Guilherme Salles share this car. They share this car during all year. Of course, Alceu Feldman disputes the Sprint Championship. He is a veteran in the Sprint Championship. And Guilherme Salles usually is his partner in the endurance races. They form a very nice duo. Alceu Feldman is from the south part of Brazil. I believe he was born in Santa Catarina. He lives in Paraná, but I believe he was born in Santa Catarina, which is a little bit, it's the neighbor state of Paraná in the south part of Brazil, going south. So it's a very, very, very nice driver. He's a Pro-Am driver. He competes in the main Carrera Cup class. And he's a very interesting driver. Let's see what they will do, Carlos.
Luc, vai ser interessante de ver a administração dos pneus. Eles têm 6 jogos novos para usar no final de semana. Eu tô vendo a equipe aqui já se programando para usar talvez até 3 jogos 0 agora na classificação.
By Sangulis and César Ramos. César Ramos, also one of the most accomplished drivers in the Stock Car Pro Series. Jorge Sangulis, a series regular in Porsche Brazil. An interesting title contender in the sport class throughout the Sprint Championship. And of course, a big investor in motorsport as a whole. His company Oakberry is one of the sponsor companies of the Haas Formula 1 team, since we just mentioned the Brazilian Grand Prix. And now car number 199 that is driven by Nelson Marcondes, that we just saw there alongside Luiz Razia. Luiz Razia, former GP2 driver that was quite close actually, Sergio, to being a Formula 1 driver. I believe it was back in 2013, if I'm not wrong. He had a deal to race for the Marussia team, but anyway, financial backing issues didn't allow him to be promoted to Formula 1, but has raced in GP2 and is a very well-known driver as well.
Now we see Paulo Souza, Galido Osman, and Bia Figueiredo are driving this car. We saw before the image of Bia Figueiredo, and you have 2 female drivers this weekend. The very experienced Bia Figueiredo, there you see her name at the end there, and Antonella Bassani. You know, they are both great drivers. Bia Figueiredo with huge international experience, of course, and Antonella Bassani just starting her career. Bia Figueiredo is in the Carrera Cup, driving in the Carrera Cup race. She's in the rookie class with Paulo, not because of her, of course, but because of her co-drivers, Paulo Souza and Galido Osman. Actually, because of Paulo Souza. Paulo Souza is the one who is in the rookie class, because Galido Osman is also a professional driver. It's a very strong trio, Carlos. I would say 2 professional drivers there with Paulo Souza in the rookie class for the race tomorrow.
Yeah, that was, I was going to talk about that, because Bia Figueiredo, as you explained, a very accomplished driver internationally. Galido Osman, a former Stock Car Pro Series driver, now racing in TCR South America, so very competitive as well. And Paulo Souza, even though he's from the rookie class, has a lot of experience in this series. So, of course, he theoretically will be the guy that will manage the pace. And, of course, Galido Osman and Bia Figueiredo will try to be fast throughout their whole stint, but it's a very good trio, and we have to look to them, especially in the race pace, because in the class especially, they tend to be very competitive, considering that the rookie class doesn't have such strong lineups of drivers. Even though we have Gianluca Petekov, for example, joining André Bragantini and Piero Cifali, also Caio Collet joining Renan Pizzi and Guedes, but Bia Figueiredo, Galido Osman, and Paulo Souza is definitely a strong trio. And puncture there.
Yeah, it's the car from Nelson Monteiro, Nicolas Costa, and Gaetano Di Mauro. Very slow on the track. Car number Porsche number 87. Check here if I find out who is driving. No, so far we don't have who is driving the number 87. And that's the Porsche from Fefo and Dudu Barrichello that we've seen the interview with them before. That's the car that was recuperated, that Rubens Barrichello mentioned in his interview, that they worked all night to recuperate the car, but literally all night. Rubens mentioned in his interview that he was there at midnight. They were there, and he returned at 6 a.m. and the mechanics were still working on the Porsche number 111. It was very nice also of Ruben Carlos to make a special thanks to the mechanics that worked on this car.
Yeah, Rubens started with this big thanks. Fefo, of course, was together with his dad thanking the whole Porsche crew. And Eduardo Barrichello also pointed something interesting, all the boys and girls, because we have some female employees in Porsche Brazil that helped in this process. So but the Barrichellos, they are always very nice because of that. They know when they have to be grateful, when they have to highlight, to praise actually the mechanic's job and so on. And that's the case with Ruben's kids as well. And the senior Barrichello driver giving a very good example, and by the way, being very competitive in the last couple of years as well. The reigning champion of the Stock Car Pro Series, already in his 50s, so he's definitely a good example for his kids, and fighting for the title once more in the Stock Car Pro Series. Now in Porsche Brazil in the Endurance Championship, he has been having bad luck alongside Franco Giaffoni in the last couple of rounds, but anyway, he's always one guy to watch.
And so far, Carlos, the fastest driver was Guilherme Salles. Guilherme Salles, he had a lap of 1:36.437. He's the one driving the Porsche #1. We have there on top of our screen, we see Alceu Feldman is the first one there, but who is driving is Guilherme Salles. Of course, it's a choice, it's a tactical choice. Some cars, they start with one driver, the more professional driver, others the opposite, with the regular sprint Porsche driver of the sprint championship driver, and others don't. In this case, Guilherme Salles is not a sprint championship driver. Here he is races for the endurance. He is always in the endurance races, Guilherme Salles.
Bom, acabei de falar com o
He
Franco
is
Giaffoni,
part
tô
of
vendo o Rubinho Barrichello se preparando para entrar no
a
carro.
few years
E a estratégia
right
deles
now,
é
and
ir pra
he has the
pista
best time so far.
depois, porque a pista ficou um pouco mais fria, o carro tende a ficar mais rápido, então eles estão esperando exatamente por isso que o carro 3 ainda não foi para a pista.
Yeah, we had a bit of an audio issue with Renata Dini's participation, but I believe she said that car number 3 didn't hit the track yet. I think that's the case. Car number 3, driven by Franco Giaffoni and Rubens Barrichello. You were talking about Alceu Feldman and Guilherme Salles. Guilherme Salles, definitely one of the fastest drivers in this endurance championship. Of course, Alceu is very experienced and knows how to capitalize on his partner's pace, but Salles is always very, very fast. Also a Stock Car Pro Series driver. Quite young as well, even though he has been racing in the Porsche Endurance Championship for quite a while. So he knows this car very well, even though he isn't a regular of the Porsche Sprint Championship, as you explained. But anyway, a strong driver duo, and we will be seeing what they are able to do as Rubens Barrichello prepares to go to the car. We saw in the back of the screen there also Nicolas Giaffoni, the USF 2000 champion, I believe, in this year, in this road to Indy. That is very interesting, and with a lot of participation from Brazilians. We see that Caio Collet has recently tested in the Indy Next test that we just had a couple of days ago, and let's wait and see what Rubens is able to do, and just talk a bit about the championship situation in the endurance Carrera general class, if you can say so. Enzo Elias and Marcel Miller are ahead of the pack with 142 points. Ricardo Zonta and Werner Neubauer has 126. Then Dudu Barrichello and Fefo Barrichello 117. And as you said earlier today, Sergio Alceu Feldman and Guilherme Salles, they are in the sequence there with 106 points. But if we consider the discarded results, they have 99 points and the leaders 121. So there's still a lot to come. It's difficult, but they still have chances, at least in math terms, to get this title.
Yes, and we know, Carlos, that a 500 kilometers race is always full of surprises. You know, things can happen close to the end. Sometimes the drivers are leading, they can have a punctured tire, a little problem, something that happens, maybe a tactical move. And you know, that can change all the race, you know, because you might not even finish a few laps behind. So that's you cannot count on anything before the race happens. As we see, number 8, that's being driven by Werner Neubauer and Ricardo Zonta. And Ricardo Zonta right now is the one driving this car. Of course, Werner Neugebauer is a regular of the Porsche Sprint Championship, and Ricardo Zonta he's been to Formula One. He's a very fast driver, but again, that's another team, Carlos, that or another duo that's choosing the fastest driver, at least in theory, to hit the track first.
Yeah, and that strategy is very important. We talked a little bit about that in the beginning of the quali session of the Challenge Championship, in which we saw Christian Fittipaldi talking about the strategy for car number 38. João Gonçalves hitting the track straight away in order to have a fast lap time and then give the car to Eric Santos, because theoretically he's a less experienced driver, so that he could have a lot of laps and then find his pace. That happened around 15 minutes, I believe. But anyway, we already have some time in this quali session for Porsche Carrera Cup, but in theory as well, these drivers are more experienced, even the regular drivers, the rookie or sport class drivers of Porsche Carrera Cup, and that's because they are in the Carrera Cup Championship, not in the Sprint Challenge or the Challenge Championship as we call in the Endurance Series. So let's wait and see how the strategy unfolds, especially when we think about the front runners. We saw a couple of moments ago Gabriel Casagrande in the screen. He won't be qualifying because he's the third guest driver there, and so due to the regulations of the series, he isn't allowed to qualify. But anyway, let's wait and see what Pedro Boesel and Eduardo Menossi, his partners, are able to do, as we see now the onboard camera with Lucas Salles. That's Salles because also we saw Rafael Suzuki, his partner, in the garage waiting for his stint.
Yeah, Lucas Salles, who is a very fast driver also in the regular sprint Porsche Sprint Championship. And there he is trying to get their best time. They usually get good results, Carlos. This is a very strong team. Rafael Suzuki races also in the Brazilian stock car, and you know that's a car we always have to pay attention. Right now they're in 6th overall. Of course, the Carrera Cup drivers, they don't have a combined time yet, so you know, we will have to wait and see their combined time to see the real situation. I'll see the 544. This is the car that leads the championship. Enzo Elias is driving this car. He has the best time. He just hit the best time, getting ahead of Alceu Feldman and Guilherme Salas. Alceu Feldman is already on the Porsche number 1. So the Porsche number 1 duo opted to do 2 laps, and you know, Guilherme Salas did his best lap, and he was substituted already by Alceu Feldman. And Enzo Elias, who was last year's champion in the Sprint Challenge Porsche Brasil, not the Sprint Challenge, pardon, the Sprint Championship for the Carrera Cup Brasil, and this year he started racing in the Brazilian stock car.
Yeah, now joining his former title rival Marcel Miller, so a very strong lineup of drivers there. And interesting because now they don't have to fight against each other, but they have to fight types such as Miguel Paludo. We see car number 7 there. Miguel Paludo is joined by Alan Hellmeister in this Porsche Endurance Championship, and Miguel is a 7-time champion of Porsche Brazil, considering all the championships that he has competed in. As we saw once more, car number 88 getting back to the track now. Let's wait and see what he's able to do, because the pace isn't that good, only 5th fastest so far. But anyway, Marcel Miller waiting for his stint there. We saw Paulo Souza as well, and a lot of drivers still to get in the car, Sergio.
Yes, in the car number 88, we now have Giorgio Frangoulis. Cesar Ramos was the one who was able to do the 5th time so far. He has his 5th overall, but with only 1 time, and now Giorgio Frangoulis will do his time in the 7. As you said, we have right now Miguel Paludo, and then Alan Hellmeister will be the 2nd driver in this car.
And Sergio, just to mention and give the whole information for to our public, we saw the interview with Sadaki Leite and Fabio Carboni celebrating the pole position with the average lap time in the sprint challenge, actually the challenge endurance championship, sorry. We saw in the previous moment that Isael Salman and Rafael Martins were in the lead, but the latest update promoted the car number 66 to the lead of the pack, so they are in pole position for the challenge endurance championship race in this 500 kilometers of Interlagos, ahead of Isael Salman and Rafael Martins. They both are ahead of car number 45, that is 45, sorry, that is third on the grid, Paulo Totaro, Felipe Batista, and also Matteo Zocchi. We have to remember that car number 45 lost their best lap time effort because they exceeded the limit of 15 laps done. And then fourth on the grid appears car number 14, I believe. That is, let me double check here, but yes, car number 14 is from Luiz Landi and Bruno Xavier. And then fifth on the grid, car number 139, Célio Brasil, Danilo Girani, and Antonella Brasil. Sergio.
Yes, on this Porsche number 3 that just crossed the line there, this one here, it's Rubens Barrichello who is driving. He shares the car with regular driver Franco Giaffoni, but again the choice was to put the fastest driver first, Rubens Barrichello, so he's driving the Porsche number 3 up to this moment. So we don't have at least officially any average lap yet, but we have, let's say, Carlos, I would say we have around 20 minutes, maybe, right? Yeah, around 20 minutes of qualifying time for this Carrera Cup. Because I have here the overall time. The overall time is 1 hour and 7 minutes of qualifying session, but this counts with the sprint challenge qualifying session. So they are both together. The sprint challenge end up at the 40-minute mark, and now we should go to find out who is going to be the pole position for the race tomorrow.
And there we see Nelson Piquet Jr.
Yeah, Nelson Piquet Jr.
So we are getting to the halfway mark of this Carrera Cup qualifying session, I believe, Sergio, and we have to think about the competitive drivers that we already saw hitting the track. For example, car number 7 that we see on the screen, of course, also car number 544, driven by Marcel Miller and Enzo Elias, and we have to check if there are big gaps between them. The situation of the season leaders seems good because they both are very fast drivers and so far leading the pack with Enzo Elias' effort there. So we can expect a good average lap time from car number 544, as we see car number 7 going a bit wide. We saw in the replay car number 7 that is currently being driven by Miguel Paludo, the most experienced of the two drivers that share the.
Yeah, and he's going to the pit, so Alan Hellmeister will take charge of this Porsche number 7. Miguel Paludo was runner-up this year, right, Carlos, in the championship for the Carrera Cup championship.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just getting
the sprint championship.
The precise points here because we always like to give you the complete information, but the Carrera Cup was completed the following way. Nicolas Costa, the champion, with 279 points, and Miguel Paludo, 247, so runner-up, the driver of car number 7. And Nicolas Costa, that was the sprint Carrera Cup champion, actually is a former endurance-only driver in Porsche Brazil. So let's see if Miguel Paludo is able to bounce back in this 500 kilometers race of Interlagos.
Yes, no, Nicolas Costa had an impressive season in 2023. He was really amazing. At this point, Carlos Rubens Barrichello gets the second best time overall. There he is, Rubens Barrichello, driving, and he's taking his car. So Franco Giaffoni will take charge of it. In the 199, we have Nelson Marcondes and Luis Razia. And I believe it should be Luis Razia driving this car now, because Nelson Marcondes was driving it before, unless he didn't go to the pits yet, but he was the first one driving this car.
Yeah, and that's an interesting duo of drivers as well, because Luis Razia is very fast, as I have explained, but Nelson Marcondes is definitely a consistent driver. So in the average lap time effort, he may get something interesting, as we see that the sky is getting gray, to say the least. Let's hope there's not any rain to come, but I believe that's not the case, just because we are reaching 6 p.m. already in the Brazilian time, so maybe that's the reason why the sky is so dark.
Like if this were not the city of São Paulo, Carlos, where we can expect everything for you who don't live in Brazil. São Paulo, it's very normal during these summer months. It's not summer yet, I know. It's spring right now here in Brazil. It's autumn, of course, in the northern hemisphere. But it's been very hot days, like if it were in summer. And it's very common, the thunderstorms at the end of the day. They are very common, and they bring lots of chaos to the city with the traffic and with everything. But I guess the people from São Paulo are already used to it. Right, Carlos? Or not?
Yeah.
I don't know.
We have to be. There's no option. So that's it. And as you said, the thunderstorms in the end of the day are very common, as we had in the situation that you just mentioned a couple of minutes ago in the Friday qualifying session of the Formula 1 Grand Prix, a very big thunderstorm. And now let's wait and see. That may be a concern for the drivers. We see now Nelson Piquet Jr. getting ready to get in the car, and it would be intelligent for the drivers that still didn't race, they didn't start their stint, to go to the car and try to get fast lap time straight away, because if there's any rain, even though it is slight or something like that, then the whole effort will be compromised. So it's time to change the drivers.
Yes, and I mentioned before the 199 that I thought it was Luis Razia, but I just confirmed it's still Nelson Marcondes there. So let's wait. It has the 14th best time, Nelson Marcondes, but it has to change fast to Luis Razia, who is the fastest driver in this team. In the number 888, there we have Lineu Pires at this point driving this Porsche. And there is number 1 with Alceu Feldman and Guilherme Salles. I believe this Porsche might already have a combined time, because I believe, and you see there the clock ticking down. So we have under 23 minutes till the end of this session, right? So it's not, of course, it's time enough for the drivers to go there. But as you mentioned, it doesn't seem that's going to rain, Carlos. Like you said, probably it's just the some mist at the end of the day,
Yeah.
It's getting late. So, it's like, as you said, almost 6 p.m. in Brazil, local time. So probably that's the reason.
Yeah, I think that's the case. But anyway, it's safer to go to the track if you don't have a combined lap time, average lap time there. So change the drivers, they both do their stints, and then you are a little bit more guaranteed. And in some of these cases, the guest driver, even though he might be faster, as is the case of Luis Razia, he isn't so adapted to the car. So that's an opportunity for the guest drivers to try something that matters. Well, as you see car number 15 pitting in this moment, that is the car driven by Leonardo Sanchez and Attila Abreu. But anyway, a little bit more than 20 minutes to go. I believe they will be able to do their lap times, and it won't be a big problem.
Number 85 is the car for Eduardo Menossi, Pedro Boesel, and Gabriel Casagrande. Oh, look at that. Very aggressive there. Number 16 is the car for Marcelo Ram and Alain Kodair. Going to the pits there. It's Marcelo Ram who was driving that car.
just saw there Nicolas Costa. I said that he wasn't fighting for the title in the Endurance Championship this year. That's the case indeed. He's partnering, I believe, Nelson Monteiro there. And their championship situation isn't that competitive. They both have 29 points, and that's not the standard that Nicolas Costa is used to, considering that he's already a Carrera Cup sprint champion. And what a season he had. So let's wait and see if he is able to end the 2023 season of Porsche Brazil with a high, even though, of course, he's already a champion, so he doesn't need to prove anything. And now it's getting
inclusive tá dentro do carro, vai sair
a
agora
little
para a
bit
pista.
trickier, the weather
Edu, tá
conditions.
feliz
Let's
com o
hear from
resultado?
Luc.
Como que tá sendo a formação desse trio aqui?
Mais ou menos, mais ou menos. Eu queria ter virado um pouquinho mais rápido, eu fui atrapalhado pelo seu Leonardo Sanches.
Lavação de roupa suja.
Acredito que fez de propósito, mas tudo bem, estou feliz. Agora o Casagrande vai entrar e vai aí liquidar a fatura. O importante é que a gente está na frente do Roma. Esse final de semana aqui é um final de semana de lavanderia. Estamos lavando muita roupa suja do campeonato passado e vamos sair na frente, né? Não tem jeito. Aí o Casagrande vai fazer talvez o tempo mais rápido. Notem aí.
Valeu, Edu. Olha, essa parte não tem como não falar, né? O que acontece aqui nos bastidores, essa turma de amigos que existe aqui na Porsche Cup. Luc e Thiago, vocês conhecem muito bem. É demais acompanhar. Eu falo que amor e ódio andam juntos, eles brincam o tempo todo e é sensacional. Eu mostro um pouco disso lá nos stories para quem não tá seguindo a Porsche Cup, viu?
Yeah, interesting information there from Eduardo Menossi. He says that Gabriel Casagrande actually will be qualifying alongside him, so Pedro Boesel won't be hitting the track. That's an important factor because Casagrande is a very competitive driver, especially in Interlagos, as his Stock Car Pro Series record shows. So let's see if he's able to get a good average lap time effort there alongside Casagrande. And Edu Menossi was also joking a bit with Leonardo Sanches that he said that impeded him in one particular part of the track, as now we see Enzo Elias already out of the car. And Edu Menossi also joked a bit with Roman Dzinkiewicz, that is the teammate of Nelson Piquet Jr. So they are good friends and they like to joke with each other, Sergio.
Yes, that shows how amicable is the environment in Porsche Cup Brasil. It's a very and that's how it's supposed to be, right, Carlos? Because of course there are rivalries. Here and there, one driver might not like the other, but overall, it's a very good and nice environment. You know, they all eat together. The place where they eat, where they meet, it's all together, and they are together like 9 times a year for 9 weekends, and they end up knowing each other and doing things like that. So it's a very, very good situation in the Porsche Brazil regarding that. We still have, Carlos, the 544 at the fastest Porsche so far with Marcel Miller and Enzo Elias. At this point, Marcel Miller is driving it. Rafael Suzuki in the Porsche number 70. You remember Lucas Salles was the first to be driving the number 70. Now it's Rafael Suzuki. Rafael Suzuki just set up the 6th best time, and Alan Hillmeister has the 7th best time with the car he drives with Miguel Paludo.
And that's Gabriel Casagrande, I believe. Car number 85, yeah, that's it. Shared between Casagrande, Pedro Boesel, and Edu Menossi, that has just been interviewed by Renato Diniz, our reporter. So let's wait and see what the former Stock Car Pro Series champion is able to do. He's actually leading the 2022 season of the category, but isn't a full-time driver in Porsche Brazil, but definitely one of the stars of this grid for the 500 kilometers race of Interlagos, Sergio.
Yeah, another driver who is not a regular one in the Porsche Sprint Championship is Ricardo Maurício. He just set up the 3rd best time in this afternoon in Interlagos with the number 555. Is the Porsche from Eamon Darwich. Eamon Darwich is the regular doing the Sprint Championship, and it has also Gustavo Zanon, and Ricardo Mauricio is the second driver there, even though Ricardo Mauricio, in this case, Carlos, he is the second driver. He's the one who races with a Mandarich for the championship.
Yeah, and also a very accomplished driver, Ricardo Mauricio, three-time champion of the Stock Car Pro Series and a former Red Bull Junior team member. He's actually one of the first members of the Red Bull Junior team. Of course, we always remember drivers such as Sebastian Vettel or even Max Verstappen and so on, but we had a lot of Brazilians in this team back in the beginning of the 2000s, and Ricardo Mauricio has funny stories with Helmut Marko and so on, but racing back in his country for quite a while already, and definitely one of the top drivers of our country.
And right now, Suzuki has the best time overall. We're not talking about the combined time. This is Rafael Suzuki in the Porsche number 70. He was the first driver actually to get ahead of Enzo Elias. Nelson Piquet Jr. got the seventh best time.
Lourdes da Renatinha e pedir para ela colocar ovos para Santa Clara. Isso já funcionou uma vez. Eu acho que vou ter que ligar para ela e falar, vó, coloca a bandeja inteira para amanhã. Porque eu não quero repetir a dose do ano passado e ficar numa prova de endurance com chuva, não.
Yeah, actually, Renato was joking with the Brazilian commentators of Porsche Brazil about the weather forecast. I will check once you get the word back, Sergio, but I believe that it is definitely a concern for the drivers and the journalists. Renato Diniz was joking that she doesn't want, to be as wet as she was back in 2022. We had a very tricky season finale with a lot of rain and a very extended safety car period in that race. You will remember very well as well.
I totally remember, Carlos, because there was that issue of the rules that some cars, they didn't make any mandatory pit stops, or they were waiting for the race to end without them doing the mandatory pit stops, and the race director decided to go till the end of the race, the race ended by the hour, by time, and these drivers had to do their pit stops. Suzuki forgot the Lucas Salles is going back to the car. Wow, that's interesting.
Maybe to improve the average.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But anyway, it was. But on the other hand, Carlos, in 2021 we had a very thrilling race. With some cars having problems close to the end of the race. It was a very interesting competition in 2021.
Yeah, and I just checked the weather forecast for tomorrow. Good chances of rain, but not throughout the whole afternoon. So we have the race start scheduled for 2:40 p.m. and Brazilian time, and then especially 4 p.m. there we have a good chance of rain, around 60%. So let's wait and see what happens. Even though the amount of rain is the main factor. If there's only rain and we can have green flag, that's okay, even more interesting, I would say. But that's definitely a concern, and it will have an impact in the strategy, also the segments and so on.
Yeah, we'll be here starting at 2 p.m. Brazilian time. It will be 12 noon US Eastern time, and I believe 5 p.m. GMT. I'm just going to confirm that. I'm quite sure it's 5 p.m. GMT. Yeah, exactly. To be 5 p.m. GMT. So this is the time that we will be here already, and the race will start, as you said. What's the green flag? Because it's 2:40 Brazilian time, exactly.
Yeah, it may change 5 minutes before or after, but that's the scheduled race start at least. No indication of average lap times so far. 10 minutes to go. I believe in the next couple of minutes, they will indicate something in that matter, because we have some of the cars with more than 2 stints already. We saw Lucas Salles getting back to the car there, and let's wait and see.
Now we are back to the Porsche number 111 from FIFO and his brother Dudu Barrichello.
Nelson Piquet Jr. will start his first stint now. Is that right, or he's back to the pits? Because I believe he got in the car for a while already, Sergio.
I think he's back to the pits. Maybe he's waiting to do a last lap as the track gets colder, so he expects more speed. Right now, Nelson Piquet Jr., he has the best, the 7th best overall time, and he's behind, and that's the 7th best overall time. It's an individual time, but of course Nelson Piquet Jr. was faster than Roman Zinkiewicz, who he races with. So on the 2nd best time we have here, it appears, yes, Diego Nunes and Peter Vetter. So Diego Nunes, oh, actually it's Diego Nunes, okay. He's the professional driver there, got the 2nd best time up to this moment.
Yeah, we can expect that from Diego, a former GP2 driver as well, has raced for quite a while in the Stock Car Pro Series, and he's racing in TCR South America this season as Galí Osman, a very competitive driver that knows this track very well. So definitely one guy to watch. And actually, even though Peter isn't such a competitive driver, their duo works pretty well together. So let's wait and see what they are able to do in this 500 kilometers race, even though with the weather forecast that I just said, maybe it will be a little bit trickier for the duo of drivers that have one gentleman driver, as is the case. The guys that have 3 drivers and 2 pros, such as is the case of Paulo Souza, Galí Osman, and Bia Figueiredo, they can have a bit of an advantage in that scenario, Sergio.
Yeah, we have under 8 minutes to go in this qualifying session. Right now, the fastest driver is Gabriel Casagrande in the Porsche number 85. Great time by Gabriel Casagrande, 1:35.752. So, and Lucas Salles really, as you mentioned, as we saw actually, Carlos is back to his car. So right now he's in the Porsche number 70.
There we saw Pedro Boesel, that is teammate of Gabriel Casagrande and Eduardo Menossi, laughing, of course, very happy with Casagrande's effort, and Boesel was actually out of this qualifying session in order to allow Gabriel to qualify alongside Menossi. So so far so good for them, paying dividends, this tactical choice that they did, and now a bit of racing there.
Yeah, they should wait for tomorrow, but oh, he's getting, oh, that's interesting. Wow, unbelievable that, Carlos, that they're racing, they are actually racing in the qualifying session. Wow. And Fefo Barrichello is in the number 111.
And it worked, because I believe he was given a tow for car number 12. Car number 12 is now fastest overall. Let's see who is in the
Renan Guerra.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know if it was something planned, but eventually it worked for car number 12, Sergio.
Yeah, Renan Guerra got the best time ahead of Casagrande. It's 1:35.617.
Definitely the slipstream made a bit of a difference there, as we see now car number 16 going to the pits. But we saw a bit of racing that was good for Renan Guerra. Renan Guerra is partnering with, let me double check here, André Moraes Jr. in Pisani, Marco Pisani, so a nice trio of drivers as well.
Enzo Elias is back to the number 544. So at this time, Carlos, a few teams chose to, to have the drivers start with one driver, go with the second driver, and then go back to the first driver in order to improve their overall times. That's very interesting because I'm quite sure we didn't see this in Termas de Rio Hondo. But now we are seeing this because in Termas de Rio Hondo, Carlos, was the first time that they had this qualifying format, that they have a certain amount of time, and the drivers or the teams are free to choose when the drivers will try their best time, because before that they have different qualifying sessions for each group of drivers.
Yeah, and that's an interesting option because you have the trade-off as well. We have to remember that there is a maximum number of laps made by each car. And of course, when you change the driver more than one time, you have the heating lap to put the tires in the ideal conditions and so on. So they have to be fast straight away because otherwise they will be wasting their laps. So the guys that are choosing to do that, they have to know what they are doing, and their engineers have to be very smart and up to date considering the number of laps.
We have now the Porsche from Nelson Monteiro, Nicolas Costa, and Gaetano Di Mauro. Another driver, I believe we didn't mention him yet, Carlos. He did the 12th best time, is Caio Collet. I don't know if you mentioned him, I didn't mention him, but we have Caio Collet with the 12th best time in the Porsche number 9. He competes in the Carrera Rookie because he competes with Edu Guedes and Renan Pizzi.
Yeah, I talked a bit about him in the beginning of the broadcast, but prior to his stint. So nice to see Collet performing, still adapting to these types of cars. We have to remember once more that he's a FIA Formula 3 driver, so comes from light single-seaters to heavier cars such as this Porsche 1. And of course, as I mentioned, he may be starting his American motorsport career, has tested in the next this week with a very good effort. Actually, he was one of the fastest drivers in a test, so maybe he will switch his focus to the US, and that would be interesting because I believe that he has a good future in American single-seater categories. He struggled a bit in his second season in Formula 3, and we saw that Gabriel Bortoleto, his fellow countryman, was the champion in his first season in the FIA F3 championship. So of course that's not good for Caio Collet when he's evaluated by the team, and maybe a switch of focus to the US is a good option as well.
Yeah, and another driver who is trying to grow with the Indy family is Kiko Porto, right? Who's been doing well in the US, and his goal is to end up in Formula Indy. He is very young driver as well.
Yeah, Kiko Porto and Nick Giaffoni, Felipe Giaffoni.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is in the Barrichello's garage today, watching their relatives. The Giaffoni and Barrichello families are quite close to each other, and of course a young driver that comes from the Brazilian Formula 4 now having success in the US. Nice to see that this newly created Brazilian Formula 4 series is already forming good drivers for international categories. We have Pedro Clerot as well shining in Europe. Let's wait and see what they are able to do in the future.
And we just had the championship leaders, Carlos, getting the best time again. Enzo Elias set up the best time so far as we get close to the end of this qualifying session, and he did the time of 1:35.568, and that pretty much will put Porsche number 544 in the pole position for the race tomorrow, that I remember once again it will start at our transmission will start at 2 p.m. Brazilian time, which will be 5 p.m. GMT or 12 noon US Eastern Time.
Pegou de surpresa, passamos o primeiro set, com a libra que a gente veio usando nos treinos, não chegou na primeira saída, e aí agora a pista derrubou mais ainda, saímos com a libra um pouco mais alta, aí veio o grip, o carro acendeu, mas ainda acredito que daria para ter saído um pouquinho mais alto ainda para chegar no que a gente chega normalmente, e a pista veio caindo bem rápido a temperatura, mas foi bom do que estava do esperado, não foi fácil, e tá todo mundo perto, estamos na briga.
Yeah, we heard there from Renan Guerra talking to our pit reporter Rodolfo there, and he actually mentioned the tire pressure issue. They struggled a bit to find the right pressure, also because of the changing conditions of the track. It is getting colder now as the sun gets out, and Renan Guerra highlighted that in his first attempt, the car wasn't alive, as we can say so, but then in the second attempt the effort was quite good and they are quite close to the front runners, and apparently confirmation of the pole position for the season leaders. Sergio.
Yeah, Marcel Miller, while he was on the track, he was the fastest there. Of course, the only driver who actually, one of the few drivers that got ahead of him was Renan Guerra, who we heard there talking that maneuver right following the Fefo Barrichello in the 111, but now Enzo Elias, who went back to the track, he is the guy, there he is, he's the guy who got, actually Enzo Elias is with the helmet. Enzo Elias got the best time overall of this session.
Yeah, as we see them chatting there with their engineer, Troy Sergio, of course, celebrating quite a lot because, Guerra was a pain in the ass there, but I believe in the average effort, they would be a bit ahead anyway, but good to guarantee a pole position there, and it's important to their title pretensions. We have been talking about the championship situation throughout the broadcast, but once more, it is good to remember that they don't have such a big advantage when we think about their closest title rivals, Ricardo Zonta and Werner Neugbauer. 121 points with the discarded results applied for Enzo Elias and Marcel Miller, and 109 for Zonta and Neugbauer. Dudu Barrichello and Fefo have 105, so the situation isn't that comfortable, even though now with this pole position, it seems that the momentum is good for them. We always have to remember that in endurance races, especially in such a long one, a 500 kilometers race, the grid position isn't as important as it is in a sprint race, but anyway, it shows that they are fast between themselves as a duo. Sergio.
Oi, deixa eu chegar aqui no meio.
Let's listen to the pole position.
Mas vou baixo nessa, hein, Enzo Elias?
Marcel Miller.
Foi bom, tô feliz. Primeira volta minha, primeira saída tinha sido boa já. A gente sabia que ia mudar bastante por conta de temperatura, principalmente do ar. Chegou um momento ali que a gente achou que ia ser estável, mas fechou o tempo. Agora até peguei uma serração no final da volta. Tô feliz demais. Tava sonhando com esse momento. É um passo, não é o mais decisivo, o mais definitivo do final de semana. Tá só começando, tem 500 km pela frente, mas é bom saber que a gente tá rápido.
É isso, tá rápido. A gente conversou ontem, né, Marcel? Pelo que Marcel Miller está pensando aqui nos bastidores, ele me falou: qual será o melhor setup para o carro deste final de semana? Acho que encontrou, né?
Com certeza. Acho que a gente foi construindo aos poucos aí essa classificação desde os treinos. A gente fez um trabalho em conjunto muito bom aí, uma estratégia perfeita, e nós dois conseguimos virar voltas boas aí, que na junção deu essa pole aí. Estou muito feliz e queria agradecer nossos patrocinadores aí e nosso engenheiro, nossos mecânicos fizeram um excelente trabalho aí para deixar o carro perfeito, as condições para nós.
Isso, amanhã são 4 horas de corrida. Só tá começando. Obrigada, meninos. Parabéns. Luc?
Well, yeah, we heard firstly from Enzo Elias, of course, very happy with his effort. He said that his first stint was already very good, but he knew that the conditions of the track would change, especially because of the low air temperature, lower compared to the beginning of the session that we had in these final moments. But anyway, they were able to get the car in a good setup, and that's what Marcel Miller especially highlighted, little by little adjusting the car of course, the changing situation when we think about the track conditions isn't that good for the drivers to set up the car, but Marçal highlighted his engineer as well and the mechanics, so good collective job there in order to guarantee this pole position that is very important for them when we think about title pretensions. And of course, they both know that there's still a lot to come. 500 kilometers race this Saturday, Sergio.
Yeah, but they are halfway there, Carlos. So not halfway, but very close to it. Now we end up our transmission. See on Saturday, starting at 2 p.m. Brazilian time. Thank you very much, and see you all again. Bye-bye. Sérgio,